the Tampa Bay Lightning, up against it right now. So if they want to repeat, which we know is not easy to do, they got some tough offseason decisions to make here.
They knew they were going to be in tight this offseason, even before the flat salary cap, even before the compressed financial situation and the pandemic and the hockey world. And they have around $3 million, and they have a lot of good players. They have $3 million available, and they have, at least $15 to $18 million of players to sign. So you do the math. That's not going to be easy to do. And the challenge for Tampa is, well, first they dodged the first problem, which was offer sheets. Because had there an offer sheet, which I guess there still could one that could come through, but had one come through, it would have forced an initial reaction and immediate transactions to try to clear it out so they could match whoever got signed to it. So they avoided that initial problem. But it remains. They need to sign Sergachev. If they go long-term on him, he's $6 or $7 million. They need to sign Cirelli. Long-term on him, he's $4, $5, or $6 million. Cheranak is probably $3 or $4 million on a long-term deal. And that's going to be hard to do without moving salaries out. The issue with moving salaries out is that so many of their players, the guys that they probably would choose to move along, not because they want to, but because they have no move protection. So we've already been told Tyler Johnson was approached about this, and he gave a couple teams as an option to get traded for. Well, it's hard to make a trade with just 2 teams. And he's got 4 more years at $5 million. And the term left on these players, all good players, all valuable Stanley Cup winners, teams have a hard time absorbing that kind of salary at this point and that kind of term as well. And so you look at those 3 guys, they're going to need their permission as far as what teams they can trade them to, and then they're going to have to find a satisfactory trade to get rid of that salary. And I think where Tampa's coming from is that they're saying, okay, Killorn, Gord, Johnson, maybe even Palat, if it goes down that far, all really good players. We don't want to have to offer a sweetener for you to take on that contract. If you want Tyler Johnson, he's a good enough player. If you want Yanni Gord, he's a good enough player. We just make a trade, give us a draft pick, give us a prospect. We're not going to give you something more, Gord and a first-rounder, Gord and a prospect, Gord or eat some of his salary, which they can't do.
Who's got the leverage, though?
Well, eventually, it's going to be the rest of the league. Right. They're not bailing Tampa out by taking on these contracts, nor should they. And so it's tricky because of the no-move protection and the state of the league right now. Nobody really has room or the desire to have $5 million players, even good ones right now. So I think at some point they don't want to retain salary because they need every cent. Even one of those guys I don't think is enough to get everyone under contract. They're probably going to have to trade 2 of the $5 million players. That probably gets it done. They probably have to add a sweetener. When it's all said and done, without retaining salary, they'll have to either add a pick or a prospect to say, take Alex Killorn, and we will give you this as well. We like Killorn. We just can't afford to keep him right now.
Yeah, it comes with raising the cut, right?
Yeah, like good players, good teams. You have success. They get paid, and
exactly.
And this is where you find yourself,
especially in a flat salary cap world. So good luck, Julien Brisebois. Meanwhile, we're already seeing Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders having to move players out because they're up against the cap. Guys like Devon Taves. So you take a look at their number situation. Yeah. Wouldn't want to be the accountant there, but how do you make this thing work moving forward?
Well, I think everything right now for the Islanders is stuck on the first name, Matthew Barzal, right there, because he's going to eat up virtually everything they have left. And so we already saw Taves, a really good player, move out. Pulak's out there as well. They need to re-sign him. Desire, as he should, to be paid commensurate with his production and other players of his caliber. So the idea of a massive hometown discount, or I'll take $4 million because we're in a tight spot, it's not going to happen.
No.
And it shouldn't
happen. No hometown deal for him.
No. He deserves every cent he's going to get, and he's such a unique player on that team. So he deserves $8 million.
Yeah.
So that leaves $1 million left for Ryan Pulak, who deserves $5 million. You know, he scores a lot of goals. He's a first-pair defenseman. He's good defensively. Yes, we know they have a good defensive system, but a lot of his underlying numbers are very strong and warrant a good contract. So they're going to have to shed more salary. About buyout windows, you're going to have to other trades.
You surprised we didn't see the offer sheet for a guy like Matt Barzal, his talent and the price you could get him at?
They'd match. You can go over the cap during the offseason up to 10%, so they can exceed the cap by whatever that is, $8.1 million. So they have lots of room to match. They would figure it out after the fact. I think teams would want to do it, but the likelihood of it being successful would be really tough for a player of his caliber and how important he is for the New York Islanders. If I was a GM, I'd be offer sheeting guys left and right. You know me. I'd be all over it. But I think so much is stuck on Barzal and what happens to him. And you start looking down their roster, and this is the challenge when like, you love Komarov. Clearly, Lou Lamoriello loves Komarov. When you start paying depth players $3 million, they contribute.
Yes.
This is where you need to save the money. This is where you need. Andrew Ladd obviously is a contract that has just never worked out at all for them.
How about a Johnny Boychuk? $6 million.
2 years.
A lot of money.
You're going to have to offer a massive sweetener to take Johnny Boychuk off your hands. Komarov, 2 more years at 3. Thomas Hickey is probably a little more palatable at 2.5. But, I think with Andrew Ladd coming back, getting healthy and playing the playoffs, that eliminates that idea that maybe he's so, career-ending kind of injury, which we've seen other guys do, where they can no longer play anymore. And that would bring his salary off the books. He's not that guy. His salary is going to be on the books. So the Islanders are in tough. I look at that board there, and I don't see an attractive trade option. It's not like Tampa, who has better high-end players available for trade. Those guys on the board, while still NHLers, at that salary that they have, with those kind of terms, you can't make a hockey trade there. It's a financial trade.
All right. Ryan Pulock, arbitration date set for November 6th. We'll wait on that.
Be forced into that contract at 4 and change.
Last but not least, Toronto Maple Leafs. We had the general manager, Kyle Dubas, on with us earlier this week. Cool, calm, collected, under pressure. Couple of moves. He announced a move about an hour after we got off the phone with him. Ilya Mikheyev signing the avoiding arbitration there. They're another team. Look, you've got big-name players tied to big contracts. How do they move forward?
Well, the Leafs are actually probably not in quite the pinch that Tampa or the Islanders. They have almost no money left. They have Travis Dermott left to sign. He's going to cost them $1.5 million. But in that cap hit, projected cap hit, they have a whole bunch of players that they can send to the minors. You can sink roughly $1 million to the minors that doesn't count on your cap. A lot of teams don't want to do that because that's $1 million in actual money that goes out the window. But the Toronto Maple Leafs are fortunate enough that they have the financial strength to sink $1 million contracts and not really worry about it. So they have probably 26 guys signed that make up that $81 million. They're going to lose 2 or 3 of them to the minors if there is a minors. They might only carry 20 players, as we talked to Kyle Dubas about, when it comes down to it. So they don't. The contracts that they need to shed to get to a more comfortable number, they can just put in the minors. They don't have to make any transactions. They just don't get to play on the team anymore. Whether it's Joe Thornton, won't happen, but you can sink a league minimum $700,000 down there. It's not going to be a big deal.
Right.
And a lot of those guys, Jimmy Vesey, all those guys that they added, if it doesn't work out, if they can't afford them on the Leafs, they just put them in the minors, or the equivalent of whatever the minors might be, if there's no AHL, and they will be fine and be able to slide underneath it just.
Interesting times, 2020, right?
Yep.
And the flat salary cap and stuff. How do we get back to normal?
No.
Or is this more of a 2-3 year deal where these teams, it only gets tougher as they go up and more guys' contracts come expired? Extend them.
It's going to be a challenge, I think, probably 2 or 3 summers in a row because of the depth of the hit. How
about the Kraken coming in? How much does that help some of these teams? I don't know, right? Release the Kraken right now.
I have lots of cap available. We have no bad contracts, and we can help you out if you help us out. We thought that...
Didn't we see that with Vegas, though?
We thought that teams would learn from Vegas and say, I'm not going to give you Marchessault to take Smith.
Right, don't sweeten the pot. Just take a guy and we'll deal with that.
But when you have to get rid of guys to get under the cap, then you have that much room available, you'll be able to do some things. But, yeah, I think this is not just a one-year anomaly. It's probably going to take a couple, 3 years for the financial picture to get back to what it was, and then maybe start growing the cap back up again.